My golden brother used my contacts for a deal, but I exposed his mistakes, took his clients, and ruined him. My name is Victor, and at 26, I might as well be 40 from all the family wars I fought. Growing up, I was never the star. That title was reserved for Marcus, my older brother. Now 29, Marcus has always been the family's golden boy. You know the type. Parents bragging, teachers going out of their way to praise him at school assemblies, and even neighbors, like old Mr. Jacobs, calling out over the fence, "That Marcus, he's a real gem!" It was like everyone was under some sort of spell, seeing him as the perfect son, the perfect student, the perfect everything. Me? I played the supporting role, clapping in the shadows while trying to piece together my own path. My nights were filled with business calls that started with, "Are you sure this deal is bulletproof?" and ended with coffee-fueled dawns. I fought through obstacle after obstacle to make a name in this ruthless arena. The corporate world was a game of chess, where the stakes were high, and one wrong move could push you out of the game. But just as I was on the brink of crossing the finish line, Marcus would stroll in with his signature grin, a mix of charm and that silent message, "You know you can't stop me." It was infuriating how he could walk into a room and claim it without even trying. If I had to sweat through 100 cold calls to get one opportunity, Marcus would get a call from someone offering him a chance on a silver platter. We worked in the same industry, where the rules were more about surviving than playing fair. Business wasn't just competitive, it was a blood sport. You either won or watched as others took what was yours. I poured years into building trust, crafting a network, and burning through sleepless nights. Each deal I secured felt like climbing a mountain, only to reach the top and see Marcus flying over with ease, a casual wave as he passed by. He'd come up with lines like, "This is best for both of us, don't you think?" And people believed him. They always did. It didn't matter that I was the one who put in the work. Marcus was the one everyone trusted to seal the deal. To them, he wasn't just Marcus. He was Marcus the winner, Marcus the golden boy who could do no wrong. Not long ago, I was knee-deep in securing a deal that was so significant, it practically came with its own parade. This wasn't just another contract. It was the kind of opportunity that could push my career into a whole new league. I had prepped and planned for months, every detail set. I'd lined up back-to-back meetings, spoke to every stakeholder, negotiated until I thought my voice would give out. It was all on track. Then came Marcus. He walked in as if he owned the place, eyeing my work with that blood pressure-raising smirk, the kind that could make you question everything you were doing. "Great job, brother. I'm taking this to the meeting tomorrow," he said, turning my months of toil into just another tick on his flawless record. The worst part? He said it with that nonchalant confidence that everyone just accepted as truth. It was as if he was doing me a favor by stealing my thunder. I pointed out the sheer injustice, only for him to shrug, his eyes glinting with that maddening certainty. "Vic, winners don't get questioned," he said. It echoed in my mind like a taunt. The anger that surged through me was like fire, burning away the doubt, the frustration, the years of playing second fiddle. I stared at him, and for once I knew this was the breaking point. Marcus might have been the golden child, but even gold tarnishes. I realized that my moment was coming, and this time Marcus would be left with nothing but that smug smile. He could keep that as a souvenir, because when the tables turned, and they would, it would be my name that resonated in boardrooms and echoed in the stories. And Marcus? He'd finally know what it felt like to lose. When I found out, rage filled me so intensely I thought I could set the whole office on fire with just a look. Imagine it, everything you've painstakingly built over the years, each sleepless night where coffee was your lifeblood, snatched away with a casual flick of someone else's finger. Bravo, Marcus, just bravo. My mind was so overheated, I couldn't focus on anything, especially not with the golden boy basking in the spotlight at another family gathering, bragging about how he landed an incredible deal. No names mentioned, of course. Why bother when his smug expression said it all? Dad was beaming, practically glowing with pride. His eyes sparkled like a kid's on Christmas morning, his grin as wide as it could go. Honestly, even Shakespeare would struggle to script a scene with this much drama. And me? I sat there, glass in hand, gripping it so hard I thought it would shatter before I managed to speak. How I wanted to open my mouth and say, "Hey, Dad, your perfect son is just a smooth-talking parasite, living off others' hard work." But no, I kept my silence, letting my rage pulse beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment. Then came the long nights. I became a man possessed, digging deeper than a journalist with a breaking story. Every document, every trace of information that could reveal Marcus's rotten schemes became my target. The computer screen glowed for hours as I scoured through endless spreadsheets and confidential reports, each line more revealing than the last. I spoke with partners who hesitated to share anything, and former employees of Marcus who looked worn down, but from whom I squeezed every last bit of insight. Sarcasm and skepticism became my allies as I pieced together what would become an explosive dossier of truths. And then I found them. Mistakes. Silly, overlooked errors masked by Marcus's charisma and his reputation as the star. Oh, these errors weren't minor. They were enough to detonate the foundation of everything he stood on if they landed in the right hands. Mine, specifically. It's funny, really. Marcus spent years believing I'd never dare to take a risk, that I'd stay in my safe corner playing second fiddle forever. Well, it was time to show him just how wrong he was. My plan was no longer just a reaction. It was a declaration. Every mistake he tried to gloss over, every charm-soaked lie he sold was about to catch up with him. And when it did, Marcus would finally see what it meant to face the consequences, not as the golden boy, but as the man left standing in the shadow of his own undoing. With each passing day, my resolve hardened like concrete under a torrential downpour. I was playing with fire, the kind of fire that turns into front-page headlines when Marcus is involved. My older brother, the sly fox with the devilish grin, could smell a lie from a mile away and sense betrayal from twice that distance. But this time, I had a plan, and I was ready to risk everything. I collected evidence with the meticulous care of a rare coin collector, scrutinizing every document, email, and financial report like an archivist of hidden truths. It felt surreal how all the pieces came together, perfectly fitting into a puzzle that had somehow been overlooked for so long. Marcus had a talent for wrapping his schemes in silk and presenting them as grand victories, but I was finally ready to peel back that veil. I knew that one misstep would mean game over, and in this game, the loser didn't just walk away with a bruised ego. They could lose everything. Marcus was no ordinary businessman. He was a master puppeteer, weaving schemes and blackmail that even TV mob dramas could envy. If he caught a whiff of my intentions, the fallout wouldn't be pretty. Picture headlines reading, "Brothers at War, a rivalry that ended in disappearance." My first move was subtle. Anonymous tips. Yeah, it was a bit shady, but I wasn't about to invite him over for a friendly chat. Each tip came equipped with copies of key documents and detailed summaries of Marcus's tactics. The reports, where numbers once performed acrobatics to match his narrative, now lined up to support mine. Meanwhile, I reached out to key clients, the ones who had been stolen from under my nose by Marcus and his disarming smile. You know, the kind of smile that makes you question whether he's grinning because he knows something you don't, or because he thinks you're too naive to catch on. I played my part as the quiet provocateur, dropping hints that Marcus might not be as infallible as they believed. At first, I was met with polite laughs and the kind of patronizing, "Thanks for the heads up, Victor," that tasted bitter. But then I backed my subtle warnings with the hard facts I dug up, the kind that land like a sucker punch to trust. The shift was almost audible. The initial ripples of doubt were like the hush before a storm. I could picture the clients double-checking their records, their brows furrowing as they muttered, "Wait, could this be true?" The illusion Marcus had spun for years was beginning to tear, thread by thread. For once, I wasn't watching him steal my thunder. I was watching him stand in the gathering storm, unaware that the lightning was about to strike. Soon, the whispers about Marcus's underhanded tricks spread faster than wildfire at a celebrity party. It started with murmurs in boardrooms and side conversations over after-work drinks, but within days, it seemed like everyone who had ever crossed paths with him had something to say. Marcus felt the breeze of suspicion tickling the edges of his world. But true to his cocky nature, he dismissed it with that trademark smirk, the one that said, "I'll handle this, like always." He exuded the kind of confidence that bordered on arrogance, flashing that devilish grin as if it could shield him from any storm. And maybe it could have, in another time, with another opponent. But not this time. Not when there was a grand piano of undeniable evidence hanging over his head, ready to crash down at any moment. The tide shifted with the suddenness of a plot twist. Clients, once charmed by his easy smile and silver tongue, began withdrawing their contracts at a rate that would make any executive break out in a cold sweat. I imagined the scene in his office, the shrill ring of phones, the panicked shuffle of paperwork, the groan of the register as it begrudgingly tallied each lost deal. What had once been the seat of his empire turned into a theater of anxiety and uncertainty. Calls flooded in like a storm surge, voices filled with thinly veiled anger and skepticism. Complaints piled up, not as congratulations or friendly greetings, but like confetti thrown at a disastrous party where nobody wanted to be. Marcus, the showman he was, kept his composure. He spoke with measured words and exuded practiced calm, offering reassurances that felt more desperate than confident. Yet, the cracks were there for anyone sharp enough to spot them. The muscles around his eyes tightened. Small lines etched themselves into his forehead, and even the most expensive moisturizer couldn't erase them. The aura of invincibility he had cultivated for years started to chip away. Meanwhile, I watched from the sidelines, coffee in hand, feeling an unexpected lightness in my chest. I'd replay his voicemails, hearing the frustration in every syllable. "Victor, be a man and meet me." It was almost comical, like a challenge pulled straight from an old Western movie. Except there were no pistols, only pages and pages of documents that could make even the most seasoned corporate lawyers pause and reconsider their career choices. His voice trembled, a cocktail of rage and panic, and I could almost see him in his office, pacing back and forth, phone clutched so tightly it might shatter under the pressure. Me? I stayed exactly where I wanted to be, the shadowy figure lurking in the background, waiting, calculating. My grandmother's old detective novels came to mind, with their heroes who bided their time, observing quietly until the moment was just right. Marcus's empire, built on charm, lies, and a few too many favors, was on the verge of collapse, and I had the front row seat. I didn't just wait passively. I maneuvered with the precision of a chess player planning moves far in advance. I fed the right information to the right people, ensured that doubts turned into certainties, and let the fire of his misdeeds spread. Clients began comparing notes, their polite smiles fading as they uncovered the hidden cracks in Marcus's polished persona. The room buzzed with questions, suspicions, and the dawning realization that Marcus had been playing them all. The shift in tone was palpable. Those initial chuckles and dismissive, "Thanks for the heads up, Victor," turned into urgent callbacks, filled with clipped tones and sharp questions. I could picture the scene. Clients leaning back in their office chairs, frowning at documents that suddenly seemed much more sinister. Eyebrows arched in disbelief, pens tapping against desks as they muttered, "How did we miss this?" The whispers turned into conversations, and conversations into demands. Marcus's phone, once a source of praise and business, now felt like a chain binding him to the consequences of his actions. Each day, I watched as his confident smile faltered, turning into something more forced, more strained. He still made his rounds, dressed impeccably in suits that had once been symbols of his success, now serving as armor against the inevitable. And all the while, I knew it was only a matter of time before the grand piano, suspended by a thread of lies, would fall. The moment finally came on an otherwise ordinary day. The clamor in his office reached a fever pitch, a cacophony of raised voices, urgent calls, and slammed doors. The perfect storm. When the crash came, it was as though the entire building shuddered from the impact. Marcus's world, his flawless facade, crumbled piece by piece. And I? I sat back, letting the satisfaction wash over me like a wave. Victory, long awaited and sweet, had finally arrived. When Marcos realized the situation was slipping away, it turned into a spectacle reminiscent of Run Lola Run. Only this time, Lola was my brother, with panic painted on his face. He darted from one corner to another, as if the next step could be his salvation. You should have seen the show. Desperate calls to partners, promises of golden opportunities, all to keep anyone who hadn't abandoned him, pretending they still believed. But you know what? His usual charm suddenly stopped working. Business people hate feeling duped, especially when their own money's at stake. I kept watching from the sidelines, like a character in a video game waiting for the enemy to tire before delivering the final blow. But fate handed me a bonus scene. We crossed paths in the business center hallway. That moment deserved a soundtrack. Marcus, with red-rimmed eyes and a face resembling a bad comic strip, spotted me immediately. His glare, a mix of anger, disdain, and desperation. He walked over like he was about to star in an action movie showdown. "Was it you?" he hissed through clenched teeth, as if that line could intimidate me. I just raised an eyebrow, a gesture that always got under his skin, and said, "Your mistakes, your consequences." Simple, stated with such calm that even I surprised myself. His fist twitched, clenched, and I could see him wrestling with the idea of punching me right there in the hallway. But a fight in the office? Not the best move for a man already under a microscope. He exhaled heavily, as if trying to digest my words, but I knew it was a bitter pill. At that moment, he understood that a physical confrontation would only add fuel to the already collapsing house of cards. I turned and walked away, leaving him there, trembling with anger, but powerless to change anything. I could hear him muttering curses behind me, but I didn't look back. For the first time in a long while, I felt like the winner. The final nail in his coffin came when one of the major companies he'd been courting behind closed doors abruptly severed ties. "Due to identified violations," read their dry but damning statement. The news spread like wildfire, faster than a viral meme of a celebrity slip-up. When I read the headline in the morning newsfeed, I couldn't help but smirk. Now this was the domino effect in action. Marcus had been a business legend, but here he was, the king in his glittering suit, now the butt of office jokes punctuated by laughing emojis. Oh, how quickly people turned from Marcus is our hero to Marcus who? His former brilliance dimmed in an instant. It was like a movie scene where the main character's lights are cut at the party, and suddenly everyone's eyes are judgmental. No one wanted to deal with a man whose only game was breaking the rules. He was alone, truly alone. The friends who clapped him on the back and suggested golf outings disappeared faster than Black Friday deals. Clients? They now answered his calls with a polite, "Sorry, we've got other plans." And Dad's support? It evaporated along with Marcus' reputation. It faded faster than he could say. But I can explain. Without support, without clients, and most importantly, without that ever-present smirk that once defined him. This wasn't just a stumble. It was a full-on collapse, with fate's ironic smile whispering, "This is what happens when you play too boldly and think there are no consequences." Marcus lost everything. His business, friends, influence, and with it, that air of control he always flaunted. The confidence that once let him step over people was now replaced by desperation and fear. I saw him like that, broken, with dark circles under his eyes that no expensive cream could hide. And yes, for a split second, I felt something akin to pity. But it vanished as fast as it appeared, leaving only the thought. "You created your own demons, Marcus. Now meet them up close." Meanwhile, my life started to flourish. Clients Marcus had wooed with his grin and promises of, "I'll handle it in a flash," realized their golden boy was just an empty wrapper. And what did they do? They turned to me. At first they knocked cautiously, as if checking if I kept a tiger in my office. Then they realized the tiger was a metaphor, and my terms were simple. Want to do business? It's on my terms. I didn't just seize the moment, I squeezed every drop out of it. Deals, contracts, new projects. They came so fast I barely had time to keep up. Each signed document was a reminder that hard work, not just charm, wins the day. Ironic, isn't it? In a world where people buy into the magic of words and flashy suits, simple persistence and truth prevailed. Marcus' name stopped circulating. If people mentioned him, it was in jokes about failures, and even then, he was just a background figure. Seeing his face, stripped of its old glimmer, was like watching a star realize it was only ever a spark from a cheap firework. Marcus disappeared from the spotlight, and finally, I could breathe as if a huge weight had been lifted off my chest. No more shadow looming over me, no more fighting for every drop of attention or recognition. My life transformed, and now I wasn't proving myself to others. I was someone respected for real work, not empty speeches. Rumors said Marcus moved to another state to start fresh. Some whispered he was working at a small real estate agency. Others said he opened a cafe for astrology and crystal lovers. I didn't know, and frankly I didn't care. Those stories were just humorous reminders of how steep his fall was, quick and merciless. But in the end, it didn't matter. The golden boy, who once could conquer mountains with a grin, was now just a memory, rusted over by his own mistakes. Mistakes that no one planned to erase. All those moments when he took my wins and my ideas were now just empty echoes. And me? I was free. Free from the rivalry, from needing to be better to prove something to my father, to others, or even to myself. Now I stood at the top, not by luck or someone's favor, but because I'd earned it. And as I looked around my office, filled with new contracts, smiling employees, and my cup of coffee, I realized I was finally living my own story, not trying to escape someone else's.